All right. So looks like we're live. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. This is a new event that we're putting together with the CircleCI team. So what we're trying to do here with this, this is, I guess, the first of this type of event, is basically engage the community, trying to get a better sense of what's going on in our ecosystem. We did post this event under our new meetup site, which is called, I believe it's called Community. I don't know. Disregard that. What is it called?
Delivery everywhere.
Continuous delivery everywhere. Yeah. So let me quickly share my screen here, just to kind of show everyone the meetup site. So yeah, there's all our beautiful faces. But basically, yeah, if you want to join this new meetup space, its time zone is listed in London, but we are actually open to all time zones. Jean started it out there, so we just picked London.
It says everywhere in the name.
Yes, but it's for everywhere. Yes. So glad to see that we're getting some members and some traction. That's cool. In the future, we'll probably be using this for more of these types of events. So if you register, you'll be notified. And there's some already upcoming events not related to this community stream event, but we're going to be doing one in May. And then, as you can see, we have a few more things happening. So as we schedule events and get them polished and ready to go, we'll announce them here, as well as probably the other meetup sites that we have. But this is a starting point. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. There is some things I'm sure you're watching on either Twitch or YouTube, but what we're going to be doing is with this event is leveraging Discord. So we have our CircleCI Discord channel, or is it a channel? Or I'm not familiar with Discord.
Server. Server, yeah. Server, you could use both. That's fair.
Yeah. So it's a server. I want to be technically correct because get hung by the developers out there. So anyway, let's go ahead and converse there. If you have any questions, you can ask them. If you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, we do monitor that as well. And hello, Alex. How are you? So yeah, basically, join Twitch, Discord if you want to, communicate that way. We also have a server that I don't know, how long ago did we establish that, Jean?
I think January or February we started, and then we're kind of ramping up now with more events, happening every week, every month, I would say, a couple of them a month.
Cool. Yeah. So, join up. I mean, we're trying to communicate as a community type event, community type ambassadors, right? Ambassadors. We're trying to open up the channels of communication beyond, just the regular LinkedIn and Twitter, whatever. I use Twitter a lot. But anyway, if you want to communicate with us directly, we have accounts on there, and more than welcome to join. So let's jump into today. I see a note from Alex, which says it's actually a guild. So I guess a Discord guild. Is that right? I don't know. Thanks, Alex. We'll research that. Anyway, so for today, let me stop sharing my screen here. Today, like I said, is our live stream for the event. And again, this event is more, or this session is more for the community. We picked a couple of topics that we thought would be very interesting for everyone to learn about. And we will each, so let me introduce, or why don't you guys introduce yourself to the public? Somebody can go.
I'll let you two go first. We're on the same team.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, I'm Zan or Jean. I'm a developer advocate based in London, UK, so covering more the European and EMEA regions. I do quite a lot of mobile stuff, so if you have any mobile questions, I'm a good person to reach out to, I suppose.
Yeah. I will give you full credit. You are at least my mobile go-to CI/CD dude.
+1.
Oh yeah, you're a mobile developer too?
No. I go to Jean for my mobile.
My bad. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, he's got the most
guy.
experience. Yeah. Which is cool. So yeah, we have a hello, Demetrius. Nice to see you on board, man. So go ahead, Kyle.
Sure. Yeah. Hey everyone, my name's Kyle. On social, you'll find me TechSquid TV on Twitter and YouTube. I am a community and partner engineer at CircleCI. So I work with folks, different third-party companies and such, to partner with us to make these integrations on CircleCI. I'm from Philadelphia, not originally, but that's where I'm at now. And I am a JavaScript, Node, TypeScript guy. So if you have anything around that, I'm sure I can help out.
Yeah, Kyle's also one of the big contributors to our Orbs program. Actually, he's probably I would call him Mr. Orbs in a sense. So he's been around for quite some time with the company, and also from like Jump, right? You've been involved with the Orb program.
Yeah, so quick version of that is when CircleCI released version 2.0, it was very shortly after that Orbs came out. And right in between that period, the company was exposing us to this idea. They said, hey, we have this thing called Orbs. Why don't everyone kind of play around with it? And my first thought was to create the Slack orb, which we're going to talk about later today. And that is still currently the most used orb. And from that's how I found myself on the team. There was no Orbs team at the time, really. There was the community and partner engineers who kind of worked on all open source things at CircleCI. And now I lead the Orbs stuff at CircleCI.
The Orb Initiative.
Yes.
I guess, right? And he's very passionate about it, which I appreciate. And so if you have any questions, he's actually my kind of mentor in that space as well. So glad to have you here to kind of show off some stuff. Before we get into like the tech, because that's kind of what everyone wants to see. I did want to say that, and I will say this throughout, we picked the topics this time around because it's the first one, and these were kind of the things that we felt, people should be aware of. And this is partially the reason why we're doing this is to kind of keep people aware of what's going on. Maybe we release some new features. We'll talk about that. Maybe even go deep dives into concepts, conversations, or concepts and technologies, right? So in the future, we now have the ability to, you can leverage the Meetup site, you can leverage even the YouTube, Twitch, whatever, and also Discord, right? So we really want to kind of keep everything archived, right? So Discord would be a great place to make your requests or suggestions. Hey, even if you want to join us on if you're doing a project or some cool stuff with CircleCI or any kind of technology and CircleCI, let us know. We'll schedule something. So you can show off your stuff. But this is, again, for the community. We want to make it beneficial for you. So please be active in sending us some suggestions or topic ideas for future sessions, right? So I think I covered all that stuff. Anything?
Can I add something?
Yeah. Go for it.
Actually, Alex had a question in YouTube. We're using StreamYard to stream this. It's a SaaS, kind of web-based SaaS, so you don't run anything off your computer, and it's super easy to set up. And yeah, definitely recommend this to if you're setting stuff up like that for your meetup, maybe. Anyway, so I wanted to add that I'll be covering a few kind of Q&A sessions in the end, like general ones that I kind of gathered over the last few weeks. But yeah, if someone has a better question that I have prepared at the end, like I would be happy to cover those. Just like pop them into Discord or in the comments, and yeah.
All right. So I guess anything else, Kyle, you want to add to that, or?
The only thing I was going to add was the StreamYard thing is cool. And just to one more point of it is that we use it also not just because it's not on your computer, which is also great, but because it's streaming to YouTube and Twitch at the same time. Is that right? And I think it supports others as well. Not that that's what this is about.
Oh, did I put dynamic config? Oh, he said there's a question. The question section of
is it a thing in process or will it be? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, it's out in preview.
You're right. Yeah, true.
Demetrius, why don't we save that for the end, because we're going to have some time, so we can talk about it. But it is in preview. If you want to check it out already or now, I'll share a link later, or maybe one of you guys can share a link in Discord for the preview. But it's going to becoming generally available next April 28th, so next week, yeah. And I'm doing a stream. We're doing a stream with the product managers and some of the developers from that team. So yeah, tune in then too. There's another one coming. So other than that, let's go ahead and get started then. I prepared a few things, but they didn't work out. So what I'm going to do is talk about ARM computing and what we implemented just recently. Released into general availability, the ARM capabilities. So let me jump into a screen share here, get rid of this. But basically, and this should be a little bit interesting for everyone. Let me see, screen share. Here we go. I'm the producer today, I guess. So yeah, so what I wanted to talk about was the ARM executors or compute nodes that we have now. So if you're familiar with CircleCI, we have this element within the CI/CD pipelines called executors. And these executors basically represent a runtime, right? So when your code is changed and we detect it, we go ahead and run your pipelines, right? So in order for us to accomplish that, we need to have an environment to run in, right? So a runtime to run in. And that's what an executor really is. An executor comes in a couple flavors. Executor can be a Docker container running, right, on a system. It can also be a straight up virtual machine, which is what basically Linux. It usually comes in the Linux flavor. Is that right, Kyle? And then we have a Windows, Mac OS type flavor as well. So, if you need those types of operating systems or need to test or do any kind of, operations, those are available to you. And I'm going to get into how you can define that. So we also have what we call, so not only do you have the executor, right? So that just kind of defines the operating system and the environment that you're going to run in. We also have what we call a resource class. So if you need some more compute, right? So the underlying host, maybe the resource class defines the components for like the hardware for the underlying host. So for instance, if you're running, let's say an ARM machine executor, you're going to say it's an ARM executor, right? So that will bring up an ARM instance because the hardware has to be ARM, right? In order for it to run. And then within that, we have the resource class option. So that basically tells the system to spin up an ARM architecture, right? Or an ARM VM. And then also what type, meaning what capabilities or capacity. So you could have an ARM medium, which has like, I think right now we only have the two resource types, ARM medium and ARM large, which is like a 2 CPU, 8 gigabyte machine instance. And then we have the large, which is I believe it's is it 4 or 8? No, 4 CPU and 16 gig of RAM. So, and I'll get into some of that shortly. But let's go ahead and start with ARM. So I have a project. Actually, before I get into that, I had a friend yesterday kind of give me some crap about, he's been watching a couple of my previous sessions, and he's like, oh, used to be such a huge Vim guy. And, now you're jumping over to like a VS Code, and we got into this little thing. So I said, all right, for you, I'll do the next stream using some Vim and the terminal just to get by. So by the way, I'm very, very rusty. So you can make fun of me. It's all good. But I'm going to do this demonstration in Vim real quick. All right. So let's go ahead and open the project. Right. So it's going to be, and this will be cool to just show people that, yeah, even experienced developers, right, we always struggle with things. So we don't know everything.
Everything's always changing. How can you keep it all in your head?
So, and I haven't touched Vim in quite some time. So here's a project, right, that I have. And by the way, this is available. I can share a link to exactly where this is. But essentially what I want to do, though, first is ensure that, I don't have any Alex says use VS Code for a week. Yeah. So essentially what I'm going to do here is basically open up a new terminal. Let me, made that too small. I want to make sure that everybody can read all this good stuff, right? And then let's just cd into my project. I know I could open up a shell here, but I just want to show people that, you can do other things in different ways, many things, different ways. All right. So let's do a get status, right? Make sure that everything's cool. All right, cool. So we're good there, right? Now let's go. Oh, I went to the wrong one. Whoa, I closed it. Nice. That was not cool. All right, so we'll just redo it. I hit my controls are all messed up here. See, there you go. I haven't touched this stuff in a minute.
While you're pulling it up, I wanted to point out, in case anyone doesn't know, you can actually use Vim shortcuts in VS Code. I know that's not the reason they said it, but if you are a Vim user and you are switching over to VS Code.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, this is true. So let me just open up a new one. I screwed that all up. All right, let's see. Where's my Oh, here we go. Sorry. See, I'm a little rusty. Anyway, so I have my project here, and essentially, let's talk about ARM, right? So before we get into like the configuration, as we all know, right, ARM has been around for a very, very long time. I mean, it's been widely adopted within mobile devices, and the number one reason why is it's very good at processing data using very low power, right, or minimal power compared to like an x86 type architecture, which is primarily what Intel uses, right? That is very heavy on the power, but it does process things a lot faster in certain cases, right? So the argument is generally found that, x86 processes things at lightning speeds, but uses a ton of power, whereas, the nature of the ARM architecture, things get processed in a more sequential manner, which means it's a little bit slower, but uses less power, right? So there's like this battle. I personally don't care. I just use whatever tool is going to get me my jobs done quicker for whatever, reason. But, I think these companies are now going to start battling it out, right? No, I think they're going to battle it out. And yeah, so like now Intel's focusing in on, at least from what I've been reading, focusing in on like more of the power saving type capabilities, right? But while still maintaining the immense processing speed that they have. And then the other way around, right, is happening with ARM architectures where they're focusing on making things a lot faster and with also maintaining that low power consumption. So, it is what it is. But right now, as developers, we're kind of in the middle because when we write our apps, we want to deploy to all the platforms, right? We don't care where our code runs. In general, we shouldn't care. Like, code is agnostic. It should run wherever the hell it can, in my opinion. So that's where like I stand on that whole ARM, Intel, whatever, x86 architectures. I don't care, right? I just want my code to run, and I want to deploy it as easily as possible. And that's where CircleCI kind of met the developers where they are by adding this feature, because we see that developers are becoming more and more interested in deploying their applications to different architectures, and we're trying to make that process a lot easier. So having said that, the first thing I want to talk about here in this project is, before we get into it, is the project itself. It's a simple web app. I use it all the time. If you've seen my streams, you've probably seen this app. It's very just a static Node.js application because I like to focus in on the actual pipelines rather than the application, especially for, intro type stuff. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is I want to focus in on this Docker file here. The reason I want to focus in on that Docker file is normally I use that same file to build, for like when I use previous to ARM coming on board in CircleCI world in space. It was building things for Linux. AMD 64 is usually the architecture, right? So in this case, just want to point out that the container that I'm going to create in this demonstration is going to use an ARM 64 version 8, which is what we support at CircleCI currently. If you're using version 7, I've got it to work, but I would recommend just sticking to version 8 and whatever else is, that we support. Not sure if you have you guys see this this advertisement. I guess somebody's advertising on our Twitch.
Oh, good. No, I missed that, thankfully.
Yeah. So go ahead and so just understand that, when you're building Docker images to deploy on ARM, make sure that you're using an ARM image container, right? So you need to have the underpinnings of the ARM system. Otherwise, if you build for an AMD 64 architecture, that's not going to work on an ARM platform, right? That's the problem between ARM and these different architectures. The instruction sets are different, so it won't know how to basically read, right, what you're sending it, or understand what you're sending the processor. So that's just basically the thing I wanted to talk about. So let's go back up. Wow, I remembered that old command to go back up. I know my Vim is not decked out with like all the cool IDE plugins, but maybe I'll get back into it. I don't know, I'm just doing this to kind of show.
I wasn't aware that those Vim plugins were even a thing until pretty recently, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, they're funky though. I'll say that. Like they can get. I don't know. Yeah, I have my opinions. I like to go do things raw, but they do help. I mean, I've used them before. They're okay. So so what I'm doing now is going into the config file, right? I know we're trying to keep this to 30 minutes, and then like a 10-minute question and answer about the specific topics, and then the other boys will take over. So what we have here is, again, our configuration file for this project. Notice that, right, we have some Docker, so we have some orbs that we're using. I'm actually starting to use a lot more orbs because I want to highlight all the awesome work that Kyle and his team are doing and the CP team are doing, as well as what our partners are doing, right? So CircleCI aren't the only people that are writing orbs. Partners as well as community too, right? So if you have some functionality that you have and you want to encapsulate it into a reusable module, you can create your own orbs. And Kyle's actually one of the masters at doing that. So so what we're doing here is, let me go back up. So what we're doing here is basically instantiating a Docker orb, right? Because we're going to build a Docker image, and a Node orb, right? Because we're going to be using Node for the project, and then the Terraform CLI orb. So basically, 3 orbs. The first thing here, right? Let's take a look at our jobs, because that's the building blocks, right? Those are the things that will be executed, and then we use the workflows concept to orchestrate the jobs, right? Basically, we define our jobs, the things we want to do, and then we use workflows to actually execute them in the order or in the fashion that we want them to be executed in. It'll be a lot more clearer once we go down this road with showing you the demo. So the first thing I want to do is obviously test my code, right? Just run a unit test on the code. And this is where I was talking about, right, with Sheen. This is an executor kind of tag. If you were using Docker, this would be Docker. If you're using Mac OS, it would be Mac OS. Windows, is it Windows, Kyle? I don't ever use that.
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But anyway, so you're going to spin up something, right? And most of the time, these things need an image, right? So it needs an operating system. In this case, we're going to leverage Ubuntu, one of my favorites. So we're going to also, we was talking about earlier, the resource class, right? So this is the capacity of the machine, but this is also how you're going to define an ARM resource class, right? So just prefix it with ARM, and then dot medium or dot large right now. We will be adding more capacity at a later date, but since it's so new, can I make the screen bigger? Really? That's kind of blown up, but okay, we could do that. How's that? I'll leave it at that. So yeah, so we have the ARM resource class, and right, it's medium, which is really, really cool. And it's enough for what I'm going to be doing and showing you. Then right, with our test job, I'm just going to be using the node orb, right? And what this does is essentially, we have as developers, when you're using node, there's a lot of commands and stuff that are repetitive. This just, the node orb helps with just like having, things installed for you, especially on an image like that. And then also, gives you the flexibility to easily define things that are very common patterns, like things like, npm installs. We also have encapsulated the caching mechanisms for like node projects, which is really cool. So like, you don't have to deal with because if you were to cache with CircleCI without using the node, you could still do it, right? But you would have to add a couple more lines. So this is just a nice clean way to do it, right? And then the next line here, we're going to run some tests, obviously, right? And then we're storing those results in the build. What I wanted really to show you though is again the orb creation, so we can do things like for the next job, like building our Docker image, right? One of the things that's really, really cool about it is again, right, there's a lot of things that is kind of encapsulated and hidden. Right now, the ARM architecture is only available in the machine. I forgot to mention it, in the machine executor type. So I know there are plans to add more of like a Docker a container ARM capability, but right now, we're just getting started with this new resource class. So that will evolve into eventually. I don't know when, so don't ask, please. But eventually, that will turn into an offering that will be like Docker compatible in a sense, right? Like, so
although just to make clear, if you do want to make ARM based Docker images, you can certainly do that on machine. Well,
that's what I'm going to show.
Yeah,
right here. Yeah. So yeah, but right, that's why I'm showing you this, right? So to get around like being able to build these Docker machines or ARM capable Docker images, this is the way you would do it, right? So if you want to package up your application, you could do that. If you're like going to build an executor or a binary like an exe, or maybe that's ARM capable, or just a regular binary, right, that you want to deploy to ARM, you're going to have to compile on ARM hardware. It's just the way it is. So what we're doing here is just compiling, right, this Docker image. I don't want to go too far into it, but these are some nice features that you have, right? So say you can tell it, hey, build me a Docker image, right? And we've encapsulated that functionality. In the past, this was like probably 5 lines of code. Here it's only 3, but they're reusable, right? And it's nice repeatable patterns. And then finally, right, you can Docker push. So the one cool thing I wanted to show as well, though, is in this demonstration is, we want to deploy to different things. I'm a big fan of infrastructure as code, so what I like to use is Terraform quite a bit. I also use other products like Pulumi, right? There's other also like infrastructure as code type tools like Ansible, and all these cool projects. But right now I'm going to leverage Terraform. So basically what I have here, right, is the Terraform orb that we're implementing. And this is how you would implement it, right? You could install a version of Terraform. Right now, I'm only going to use 14.2. but they just last week released 15.0, and it created some breaking changes that we need to fix. So in our orb, but they've been fixed. Just pinning it at a certain place. But if you're using 15.0 and above, the orb currently has some issues that we're working on. Just to let everybody know, but we'll be getting to that shortly. Anyway, so what I'm doing here is just saying, hey, install this, and it's pretty cool, right? So like you can install the Terraform client that you want. Here I'm defining the architecture. I think we have a default to AMD 64 because it's more widely used. But right now I'm telling it, hey, I want an ARM64 binary, right, or CLI version. And of course, obviously, the operating system is currently Linux. So we have an init, right? So an initialization function, the very simple things that Terraform requires you to do in order to initialize a project, especially when you're starting out. And when you're doing CI, right, you shouldn't be copying in over any kind of state files or any kind of things from your local machine and pushing it up to GitHub. That's a huge no-no. So that's why we have these initialization procedures, and then all these other kind of tools that we use. I normally don't.
To you, Angel, you helped fix that in this orb. So Angel actually did work on this orb and actually helped improve some of the workspace capabilities.
Well, I needed to for my. That's all good, but I needed to for my demo, right? So,
hey, whatever the reason, you did good work.
But by the way, it's open source. So if anyone is using this orb, go ahead and look at it. It's simple bash scripts, right? So, or I don't say simple, but they're pretty easy to read, and contribute, right? So if you want to make things better, or you don't like something the way we're implementing it, feel free to make suggestions. Again, this is why we're doing the stream, to make people aware that all of these things are available to you, to the community, and we definitely want to do a better, or at least establish like better communication engagement. So anyway, jumping back into the code, I'm just going to quickly go over this because I know I'm running out of time here soon. So with the Terraform apply, right, that's the way you trigger Terraform. I'm using some Terraform variables, which basically give the ability to feed dynamic values for specific things within my Terraform code. If you want to take a look at that stuff, we do have it at CircleCI public and GitHub, and I believe this project is called Blog ARM Executor or something like that. I will get a link once Kyle and the other folks are doing things. They're doing their thing. But basically, I'm just feeding in this variable, the Docker image name, which I'm actually using CircleCI's environment variables to name it. I like to use like my Docker login. Obviously, you have to use your Docker login, so I'm going to push it up to Docker Hub. But then the CircleCI project repo name, anything prefaced in these environment variables with circle underscore means that the system CircleCI is generating those or creating those environment variables at runtime. So these are like placeholders, right? So this gives you that variability to be able to just keep some sort of consistency across the board, which is a very nice feature. When I was writing my own rolled my own kind of build processes or build systems, this was a real pain in the ass to get right. So it's nice that we can leverage environment variables here. Anyway, so finally, right, I'm just going to have a destroy command because I don't need that stuff after this demo. But then let's talk about the workflows. So what I'm showing you here is essentially simple workflow. Again, jobs are the things that you want to execute, right? And then the workflows are the way you create orchestration of those jobs. So it kind of basically builds the order of operation for your jobs, right? And there's a lot of advanced things you could do with jobs and workflows. Like with workflows, you can filter things. So like right now in this workflow, this thing will run every time code is pushed. But maybe I don't want to run these things all the time, right? Maybe I want to only run them when they're merged into a specific repo, like maybe main repo, or maybe whatever the name of your repo is, you can do things like filtering, which maybe that's a session we'll get into deep. But for this simple demo, I'm not going to do that. But anyway, so we have a workflow, right? And then the workflow workflows is a list. Right now I only have one workflow, and it's called build, right? But for every workflow, you want to orchestrate jobs, right? So now I have to create a jobs list. And this is essentially how you tell a workflow what to run. So first thing I want to do is run some tests. Then I want to build a Docker image. And then what I'm going to want to do is also build and deploy an AWS ECS cluster, right? So Elastic Container Service Cluster using Terraform. Now, these three jobs, as you can see, are going to run simultaneously. There's no dependency there on anything. And I'm a firm believer in, if you can run all the things, right, do it as often as you can. Now, when you need to build a dependency, do that as well. But in this case, I don't really care for it's a demo. But maybe, you want to, if any of these fail, then you could build a dependency on like run test, right? So before I run test, I would build a require statement, just like we have here, right? So I built a job. It's called approve destroy. And that's basically going to destroy all of the infrastructure that is going to be built. And then it's a type of approval. So this is like a manual step. We call this a manual step where we want to stop a build to have someone perform something, right? So this is a manual step, requires, maybe it could be a code review, could be a manager needs to say yes to your code changes before it gets deployed. Whatever the reason, you have that capability. And this is how you would create a dependency on a job within a workflow, is use a require statement and then connect that, right, to basically say, hey, you can't destroy anything until the deploy AWS ECS passes, right? So I hope that makes sense. It can be a little confusing, but once you have that approve destroy button or process in your workflow, then it will not automatically destroy things. And as you can see here, right, what happens here with the destroy AWS ECS job is it won't fire, it won't kick off until the approve destroy button is clicked. So you'll see this all in action shortly. So that's basically the config I'm going to show you today. So let me go ahead and go back up to well, actually, let's just go ahead and make a change, right? So let's go ahead and make a change to right. So go back up. Forgot about this. All right, let's go ahead and make a change to the app. So here's the application. I'm just going to change, I don't know, the version number up here. So let's go ahead and change this to version 3. And then we can, not 3.2, but 3. And then we can kind of write it. There you go. Now I can jump over to, let's go over here to my, let me make this a solid green black. All right, cool. So I can do another get status over here. So my app changed, right? So let's do a git commit. And then app, we'll add a message. Updated version. And while this is kicking off, I'll go ahead and answer some questions because it's going to be a minute to check, like to build out all the stuff. It's going to be a few minutes. So let's do a git push. So this is where I'm going to trigger, right, a pipeline build or pipeline build because my code is changing upstream. So let's jump over to the CircleCI dashboard. Now that I push my code, if I can find it, here we go. So as you can see, right, it detected my code changes. It's going to run. Now, like I said earlier, right, I have 3 jobs running in parallel concurrently. This is, again, for me, I like to do things at the same time wherever possible. Obviously, this is a demonstration. So like realistically, this would have a few more dependencies, right? Especially if you're going to push to production or some really important infrastructure for some important testing. But in this case, I'm just demoing the ARM architectures. So let's go ahead and check out our run test. I wanted to show you here. So this is me digging into the job, right? And then you can see here that the executor type is of ARM, which is really cool. You kind of can see that happening there. And yeah, so I had some unit test problems. Wonder what that is. Oh, there was a problem with my version number, so I screwed something up. Awesome. Let's go see what that is. Yeah, that's not good. How did that happen? All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and fix that because this is not going to run, I don't think. I see what happened here. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and fix all that. Just give me a sec. But anyway, so it shouldn't impact the app, I don't think. Let's go ahead and find out. Sorry, I got too many screens here. All right, so we're gonna run. Oh, it did fail. Cool. So hey, look at that. You get a nice run test, right? So it's still deploying AWS ECS. So we'll skip the app. We'll fix it in a sec. I just wanted to show you the Terraform kicking off. So basically what it's doing here is building out the infrastructure, right? Now, once that happens, if you jump over to AWS, I'll just show you in the console here, just find ECS. Want to show you that it's building out a new cluster for me, right? So if we dig into there, as you can see, it's kind of empty right now because things are being built. The Terraform that I'm using is building out a complete infrastructure. It's building, things like a VPC, elastic load balancer. It's also building autoscale groups, security type roles. So the Terraform is very robust. It's building, all the things that this ECS cluster needs from scratch. And I also have built in some of the CloudWatch monitoring, right? So like for the autoscale group, if certain things, certain thresholds are either, certain thresholds are exceeded or they're, they're minimized, then these CloudWatch systems will kick off something, right? So in one case, if a CPU on a instance is over a certain threshold, like I think I have it to like 80%, then it will start deploying a new compute node, right, to handle that load, right, across the board. So those are the kind of things you should be looking at as well if you're building resilient systems or resilient infrastructure. But I won't get too much into that. Maybe we could do that at a later date. But again, right, it's just building all these things. It takes a moment because obviously we're in the cloud providers. We're at the cloud providers' mercy. So however long it takes them to build these things is what's going to take. But in the meantime, what we could do is, just show a little bit about in the CircleCI platform. In order for this to actually work as well, we want to do, we want to enter in some environment variables. As you can see here, those are the things I was talking about. The ones that are prefaced with CircleCI, those are automatic. You don't have to do those. You don't have any control over those for the most part. But these things like, since I'm connecting to Terraform needs credentials to connect to Amazon, we have to use these environment variables to provide those credentials right within the runtime. By the way, these are masked and protected and encrypted in the platform. They're also encrypted in flight right into the runtime. But just so you know that we take security very seriously, and we do protect secrets, very, very well. So within the configuration, I also have the usage of my Docker login to push stuff to Docker Hub, which is required these days. So definitely need like some credentials there. I'm also leveraging our orb, which requires like these environment variables as well. So you need a Docker login and a Docker password, which is essentially an API token. And then finally, right, I'm using Terraform Cloud to store my state. Normally, if you don't have this, it would store it locally, which isn't good for your CI processes because What about if someone goes behind you, right, and runs that same job? Where's that state going to be pulled from, right? The system won't know. And state is essentially the last known change in your infrastructure, right? So just keep that in mind. I leverage Terraform Cloud. You could use other backend systems for state. I just like Terraform Cloud because it's nicely integrated with their products, and it's free. So let's take a look at our pipeline. It was failing. So here's the dilemma, right? So I know I screwed up my test, but what I want to do is go back into Amazon and see. This is a good learning lesson here, I think, and see like where my system lies. So now we have our cluster created. It created a service, right, which is attached my ECS cluster to an Amazon application load balancer, which was also created in the code, and then it's enabled the target groups, right? So now the traffic is going to be balanced across the board. So again, right, we were doing a lot of things with this code, with the Terraform code. So in ECS, a deployment is known as a task, right? So you're supposed to be running things. Obviously, this is not running because of see, if you look at the error, our container's jacked because of the app problem that I had. And I wanted to leave that there so that, we can kind of talk about it as well. So basically, right, 157 is the last thing that ran. So what we need to do now is essentially go ahead and fix that application. Now, because I ran that build, what I'm going to do is cancel it because I don't want to destroy the infrastructure. So let's go ahead and fix the application here. So what I want to do is essentially, go in, and I think I set this to 3. This should be here, and then var content. Just want to make sure I got all this right. And then var content is equal to, right. Yeah, it's equal to a blank. Just want to make sure I get this right. Right, there you go. So I think that's good. Let's go ahead and write it. So now we have a new change. I'm going to implement this. Let's make sure. We're going to commit it. And then we're going to push it again just to kick a new build off and get a proper Docker image that should work. But yeah, so let's go ahead and check our CircleCI dashboard real quick. It should detect my change, which it did. In a few minutes, we'll have this up and running. But for now, we can talk about ECS a little bit, right? And look at task definitions. So this is, again, right, the way that the things that you deploy, and you define them in a task. So if you look deeper into it, you could actually see the JSON, here it is, for the tag deployment. So everything's kind of, translated into JSON, and then that is serialized and then used by the system to configure your tasks for your deployments. So you could use a graphical interface. I'm obviously doing this in code. So what we're going to do next is just kind of wait and see. That to see these tasks kind of go up. Now we do have to check on another thing that I want to show you. When using ECS, you have these instances. And while our system is running, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the instances. I wanted to show you that what we're doing is we're deploying to an ARM, right? We built an ARM image for the deployment to an ARM infrastructure. Let me get rid of this here. Let me probably also enlarge it a little bit. So if you look here, right, this basically will show you the details of that instance that we created. Right now, I'm just running 2 nodes in that cluster. But right here is the instance type for ARM, the AWS ARM instance, right? So they call those Graviton 2, AWS Graviton 2 compute nodes, or ECS instances. And if you ever like see or want to know if you're running an ARM instance, you want to look at this prefix for the instance type. Right now I'm running a T4G, and the G is the Graviton designator. So if you ever see like anything, compute node T or M or what is it, C, whatever, and it has a G right before the period, then that means it's a Graviton 2 instance. That means it's an ARM instance. So that's like a quick identifier that I learned from the Amazon team just a few weeks ago. So let's go ahead and take a look at my pipeline. All right, cool. So it built my Docker image and it pushed it. Let's see if now sometimes, right, with a deployment, I have a 50% because I only have 2 nodes and I have 2 tasks that should be running. So let's go ahead and see if our tasks are actually have been implemented and running. Now they're running, right? So now I have some running tasks. And you can see that updated, right? Task 34. Just Amazon keeps a running tally of all your tasks so that you can revert back, right? So if you need to do a rollback, you can say, hey, I need task definition 33, right? Or you skip 33, 32. In any case, this is essentially, right, like how the system is managing all those deployments. So let's go ahead and get our endpoint finally from all this. So at the end of my Terraform, I spit out like the URL for my load balancer. And once we look at this system, and I know I'm a little over, but I'm gonna jump on this real quick and show this, and then we're done. Answer some questions. But essentially, right, we have the application running, version number 3, right? It's running on ARM. So like essentially, we built a whole ARM-enabled pipeline, including the deployment environment, right? So again, the reason why I like to show these things being deployed and infrastructure is being created is you can create a lot more testing after this, right? So a lot of times I'll smoke test the application, make sure that it's functioning the way it's functioning as designed. Also, you can also test the deployment of the application as well. Like I said, in this case, I'm just showing you the ARM capabilities, and maybe in a future session, I'll do even more like robust things to kind of help show off a little bit of those concepts. So let's go back to the pipeline. Like I said, I have it on hold, but again, right, that's pretty amazing. I mean, when I started working in this industry, it would take me like weeks just to do what I just did in about, let's see what, the original build was 4 minutes. So let's just say 5 minutes, right? It's pretty amazing that for me, at least, coming from that background and that experience, and I'm not kidding. It used to take us weeks to just build this type of stuff. And by the way, it wasn't even like so like we're building machines from scratch. I used to have to grab 100-pound servers and stick them into racks, and that would take months, like 1 or 2 months, 60 days, right? Our team in racking servers was one of the fastest in my organization, and we were doing it in like a week, and that was for like 2 servers. So imagine, getting the OSs on it, getting them configured, network, all that stuff, and then building virtual machines inside of them. So imagine, right? This is pretty amazing, and it always strikes a chord with me. Anyway, so the last thing I want to show you is now that we've built everything, right? And it's working. We know it's working. I'm going to go ahead and just show you like the destroy approval button, right? Remember that approval button that I had? This again is a manual step. So it stopped the pipeline that you can see, right? It hasn't progressed to destroy, but just that simple, right? I can approve it. And once I do, the system will start up a new job, spin up a new job, and then that job will begin to tear down all of this Amazon goodness that I built, right? Using our ARM technology. So basically that's all I got for today. Any questions or comments or whatever from anyone out there, more than happy to answer them or address them. Anybody I don't see anything here for our Discord.
I'll just throw out there, it's a great demo. I'm not a master of Terraform, but I've been learning quite a bit lately, mostly because of you. And this is super fantastic, right? I don't know if everyone out there, especially like maybe the people who are watching this, are making full use of automation scripts of all types, right? And you're right, this is like pure magic, right? I mean, how cool is this that you have all this infrastructure up in AWS and what was realistically pressing the push button, right? Or typing, get push, whatever you're using.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's come a long way. I can tell you, just physically putting machines and clusters together, right? That was really expensive, just so time consuming. And the fact that again, just pushing a little blue button can get you all that is just so awesome, and it helps with like people focusing on the things that matter, right? So now system admins or SREs or whatever you want to, ops people, whatever you want to call them today, they can focus on like security, right? And focus in on getting much more robust deployment mechanisms in place rather than focusing on the things that are actually right now they shouldn't be focusing on. We have experts to handle data centers and hardware and all that good stuff. So it helps the developers as well understand how their applications can be built quicker, consistently, and more reliably, versus the way we used to do it was like, oh wow, it was always contextual. Like, do we have a cluster? Where, do we have a staging cluster? Do we have all this stuff that, it was super hard and expensive to get together, and it would really slow us down. So yeah, this is some cool technology. And the configuration of it is also much easier, right? Like, so, and that's the kind of the roll your own scripts I used to write. Was once we had all that hardware in place, once we had it functioning, it's all talking to each other, firewalls, all that good stuff, then you can start configuring the operating system to then configure the application to run on that. So yeah, if there's any questions or anything, I'm just going to check on this real quick. I want to show a little bit about so see now there's saying 2 running tasks, these container instances are running, but at the end of the day, what happens is it'll slowly come down. Right, like, so see, there's no more services. The load balancer is dead, or it was terminated. Tasks will be coming down soon. And a lot of times I found out that these destroy builds, especially on like systems that are like systematically tearing things down, take a long time. And the reason for that in this particular instance is, if you look, since I built networking components within my Terraform, it just takes AWS, and that's acceptable, right? It's building networks, and that stuff, you have to make sure it propagates across certain services, right? So that it's not that it's acceptable, but it's understandable that it takes time to destroy all this stuff, right?
On that
but that's
note,
just
small caveat. Unfortunately, sometimes it does time out. Sometimes it takes so long to tear down infrastructure that it's not CircleCI that's timing out. It's actually Terraform.
No, yeah.
So, I mean, if that does happen, could you show them the rerun button for the job?
Oh, sure, absolutely, yeah. So if we dig into here, you can rerun this and then rerun with SSH. So what this does is it's a great way to do a couple things: debugging code or whatever, or debugging jobs, within the code, or command lines, commands within the code, within the job. But it also gives you the ability to go into the environment where you're actually running your code and debug within that environment, which is not very common in a lot of other CI platforms. I can tell you that. But yeah, Kyle, thanks for bringing that up. I guess there's no questions or whatever, so let's go ahead and jump over. I'm going to stop sharing. Jump over to, wait, I hear a beep somewhere. I don't know if it's in our.
I don't have the YouTube up, but I don't think it's from Twitch.
No, yeah. I got so many things open right now. So yeah, let me jump into, here we go. Yeah, there's nothing. I don't see anything. So that is ARM, everyone. If there's any questions, just hit us up in Discord or on Twitter or wherever you feel comfortable reaching out. But right now I want to take a moment and give, I guess, Kyle, you want to jump into your Slack orb?
Yeah, would love to. I know I told you I wouldn't, but I am gonna, just to speed things up a little bit, I am gonna use my slides just a little bit. We're gonna do a full demo, but I'm gonna
do what you gotta
go
do,
through
man.
the slides.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
So let me.
I told Kyle that this was a live coding, but it's not.
And we'll do it, and we will do it.
No, I know. I just want to make sure that we're showing people the stuff, and it was more to just break your stones a little. This is good. It's always fun.
All right, let's just see if I can get this working. All right, I think we're fine. I think we're good here.
Yep.
First time using this particular system. All right, y'all are able to see? Oh, Angel just muted, but thinking we're good.
I added it to the stream. You should see it now.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, now I do see it. All right, so a quick view of the Slack orb. So you heard us talk about orbs earlier. I'm going to talk about what they are in a moment, but this is something that you can just add to any existing pipeline, something you can add to a new pipeline, doesn't matter. But it's the easiest way to get notifications about what's going on in your CI pipeline via Slack. And the reason we're talking about this one, it's our most used orb. It's a really good example if you're looking to make orbs. I highly recommend looking at the source of this one and basing off of it. And I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what it is, how it works, and show you how to use it. So let's go ahead and get started. So we kind of went over this a little bit, which is why I'm going to go through fast, but just want to talk about like what is an orb. And an orb is repackageable config for CircleCI. So on the left, you can see a pretty generic node configuration file for CircleCI. And in fact, Angel talked about earlier, he is using the automatic caching feature of the node orb. It's called install packages command. And it was allowing us to not have to deal with, over here, you can see we have this restore cache key. We have this install packages key and save cache key. Yeah, thanks for who commented on the beautiful slides. I put effort into these. And then finally, at the end, we'll do npm run test, right? So this is a pretty generic workflow. Speaking of, we have a workflow called test my app, and we'll run test. Now, we can achieve the exact same thing using an orb over here. I believe the current version of the orb is version 4.4, if I remember correctly. So you could import node version 4.4, not node version 4.4, node orb version. And the orb comes with a job called test, node/test. We're importing it as node here. We're calling the test job here. So we have one workflow called test my app. We can even pass it a version that actually does control the node version. And we can condense everything we see on the left to what we see on the right. So that's the general concept of orbs. And we're going to use a similar concept to interact with Slack. We're just going to be able to run scripts. At the heart, you can see all that's really happening is there's this like command here, right? That says npm run test, which is just some bash, really. And that's all the Slack orb is. It's lots of bash. We'll take a deeper look in a moment. Here's how to use the Slack orb. And again, we're going to do all this live, but you call the command Slack/notify, and then you pass in some parameters. So you could give it the channel ID. Most importantly, you have the event. So you can say, I want to send this Slack notification when the job fails, the job passes, or always. And that's, again, all controlled by bash. So these are all parameters that you could add to your own orbs. You can define all of this yourself. And then one of the coolest things about the Slack orb in particular is the templates. So in here, you can see I have this template called basic fail 1. And remember, in orb world, this is just a parameter. So that's just a string. There's a parameter called template, and it takes a string. But using bash, we can do some fancy stuff. So we have these pre-built templates that you can reference by name. So here's an example of what you can do. And these are good for a majority of use cases that you may have in a CI pipeline. So generic job success. If you're doing a deployment, you can get the tag number in there. Angel just showed the approval job. You may want to get a notification that a job is awaiting approval on Slack. So prior to kicking off that approval job, you may want to use the basic on hold template. And similarly, we have our failure. There's also lots of other parameters I didn't go over here. For instance, mentions is a parameter. You can see here in the job failed template, there is a pre-built area where you can @ people. So lots of cool custom functionalities that you can do with the Slack orb. But maybe best of all is not just the templates that we created, and we're actually going to make one of these in a moment, is you can actually use, Slack has this thing called the block kit builder, which is actually designed for people who make bots for Slack. It's a tool to help you make your bot easier. But we can use this to customize any notification we want and feed it to the Slack orb. So if you didn't like any of those templates and you have a custom use case, we can actually visually design it using Slack's block kit builder and import it. And that's actually what we're going to show off. So I'm actually going to skip this because we're going to do that part live. And that is the end of my slide. All right, so let's...
Well, somebody gave you some love on your slides. Alex there.
Yeah, Alex, thank you. Yeah, I love... before I got into graphic design stuff, and I'm big on video editing and such, I was the master at PowerPoint and now Google Slides.
I wouldn't take credit for that, dude. The
master
of PowerPoint. I mean,
man, back in the day.
Teasing, man. Hey, any skill you have adds value to your.
I won't put it on my resume. If that's it.
Of course you should.
No,
of course you should. It's everything you do, put it on there.
All right. So, and sorry if you can hear. I live in Philadelphia, so there will be just sirens and things going on outside.
That's ambulance.
So I have this sample project set up. It's on my personal account. I'm not going to share. I mean, it's open source. You can go look at it if you want, but this is a junk thing, so don't bother digging too deep in here. We're going to push code here in a moment. Let's take a look at our config file right here. I'm going to make that a little bigger, a little oversized. There we go. So Angel covered a lot of this. We're going to import an orb. In this example, we're going to name it Slack, and we're importing that from CircleCI /Slack 4.4. We're going to emulate a job. So I'm going to call mine build. It's going to run on some Docker container. Doesn't really matter in this case. We're going to check out our code. Also in this demo, not necessary. Run some command. Maybe that's a deployment. Who knows? And finally, we're going to actually use that orb command. So we have Slack /notify. We could take a look at all of the available commands and jobs, but just trying to give you a high level. In the event that we pass, we're going to send the template basic success 1. And we're going to put that job into a workflow. So we have build and notify is the name of our workflow. It contains one job called build. And this is a feature of CircleCI. I was going to interject this when Angel was talking about environment variables earlier, but I figured I'd wait till we got here. There's actually multiple ways to deal with environment variables on CircleCI. What Angel was showing you was project level environment variables. So that they're environment variables that are specific to that one project. There's another option called contexts. It's a little bit more laborious in the fact that you actually have to write it in your config versus what Angel did. You don't have to do anything in your config. But here, what I can do is I can create a context called Slack, and that is a bucket of environment variables. And I'm going to go into that in a moment as well. But I can use this Slack bucket of environment variables on any project in my organization. So the same credentials, the same stuff for multiple projects, just a different way to go about it. So I'm going to show you how
Kyle,
this.
Can I quick add?
Please.
Yeah. So what Kyle said is exactly right. So you could think of this as more like an organizational set of environment variables, right? So and then you can add a little bit of I'm going to say access controls around it as well. So there's more to it. But yeah, just think of it as I don't want to say global because I don't like that word when it comes to environment variables. But in the context of CircleCI, you have an organization, right? Whether it's your user, GitHub username or whatever. But it'll just basically be available. Those variables will be available to all of your projects within that organization. And I think that's a good kind of segue into what you're going to jump into next, Kyle. Sorry, I just want to kind of address that because when I even first started playing around with context of okay, I get that they're variables, and then we started bolting on more secure type implementations, right? So yeah, just check that out. If you have any questions, you can ping us, and if we can't answer them, we'll get you whatever.
Well, thanks. You know what? I want to let's do that first. I was gonna let's take a look at this real quick. I'm going to go to my organization settings. This is my personal CircleCI organization settings. And if I go in here, now Angel showed you the project settings earlier. So this is at that org level. When it loads, if it loads.
It's that Comcast. Oh, sir. It's
I'm on
Wi-Fi,
man. Yeah. All the Ethernet in this apartment is used. All right, here we go.
Send you a switch, homie.
Yeah, I have multiple. But anyway, so I created this context called Slack. Like I mentioned, it's like a bucket. So let me go into there. Someone mentioned, is there an official Discord orb? As far as I know, Discord is fully Slack compatible. So you can just use the Slack orb and it should work. However, that was back when we used webhooks, which we don't use anymore. So that might not be true anymore. We'll have to go back into that.
There are a couple of orbs that work really well for Discord as well. And they're third party. They're not official, but they do work. We have gotten them to work very easily.
Yeah, we can definitely Alex, pull that together too.
You can also create your own, if you want, community orb. That would be awesome.
And to Alex's last thing, I half misspoke. The webhook functionality of Slack, like if you send a webhook to Slack, which is actually not what this is using. I'm going to go deeper into that in a moment. If you send a Slack webhook, you could change the URL to Discord and it would work. Discord emulates Slack webhooks. However, with the Slack orb, I actually skipped over this a little bit because it's a little boring. But when you use the Slack orb, you actually have to create a application for Slack. And it's not as hard as it's filling in like 3 boxes. And all of the instructions are actually on the orb itself. It's like a 3-step process. You'll go into your Slack app settings. You'll create an app. You'll give it some permission scopes. We can take a look at this real quick. If it flashes anything, it doesn't matter. This is all demo accounts. So I'm showing, I'll delete this bot when we're done, and it's not attached to any particular channel. All right, none of this is going to load. You add some scopes so that the bot can chat. There we go. So that the bot can chat in the message. It can write in public channels and private channels. The bot has to be invited to said channel. So let me pop open Slack. Going a little bit out of order.
This is good that you're showing, because a lot of times, we do these streams and we just assume people know this stuff. So yeah, that's pretty cool that you're building it from scratch. This is how you would do it on your own, right? In your own Slack workspace or whatever you want to call it.
I wanted to do the whole setup with everyone, but I've already blown it. But
yeah,
I didn't want to show all the keys.
I
didn't want to showcase any of like the live keys, but now I did. But like I said, it's not attached to anything. So I have you'll see in Slack here, I have this app called CCI demo, and you do that from the page we were just at. You install the app. And I've also, you'll see that I invited the application to this particular channel, and now it can send messages based on this app key that we have. So let's go back to our, here we go, our context. So you can see I've put in 2 values. I have Slack access token and Slack default channel. The access token is what the bot's using to communicate. We're not using webhooks here. And the default channel is totally optional, but that's allowing me to not include a channel parameter. And it knows to go to this particular default channel. If you want to add other channels, you absolutely can. So let's take a look. That config we were looking at earlier, I've already pushed it. We're going to do our own custom template after this, but I want to show you how it worked. And then in fact, we already kind of saw it, but all right, I'm not waiting for things to load today. So let's just go back to Slack, and you can see when I pushed code with the config we were looking at earlier, it came through to Slack using the template that we discussed earlier, the basic success 1 template. Now, what I want to showcase is using those custom templates, right? So let's real quick take a look back at this config for a moment. So here, I'm using a template called basic success 1. I just want to explain what's actually happening under the hood. Not that you need to know this, but it's maybe easier to understand. What we're looking for is an environment variable with this name. And that's how this orb is working under the hood. It looks for an environment variable called basic success 1 and uses that for the payload it sends to Slack, which actually means a lot of interesting things. It means, 1, you don't have to use the templates that I created. You can do whatever you want. You can even dynamically create a template during the project. So say up here in this step, we got some information we couldn't possibly know beforehand. We can dump that into a environment variable in a proper JSON Slack template and modify it and such with maybe tools like JQ and use that as a template. But what we're going to do is, I mentioned earlier, we can use the Slack block kit builder. So I have here an example of that. You can go to Slack, you can search block kit builder. We can put links in. You can add these different components. Some of them are not going to work entirely, like buttons and such, things that are interactive. We're just using this to send a message to Slack. So don't think you're going to get like the interactivity things that like certain bots have. Would love to get into that one day. It's not possible with orbs, but we'll get into that. So let's just add, to show that it works. let's do a link button. That would actually work because that's a legitimate link to somewhere. So I'm just going to add that in. And over on the right, I have some payload. So I'm going to copy this. Now, I actually haven't like live tested this, so I hope this works out for us. But let's.
Well, this is good.
Yeah,
live testing is good, man. Go for it.
It's either going to work or it's not. So let's see. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've done it in the past, just not with this particular template. So I'm going to go into my context. You could use project environment variables if you want. I'm going to put everything Slack under the Slack context so that I could use this particular template in other projects if I wanted to. I'm going to call this template 1. Oops. Template 1. And I'm just going to paste in that giant blob of JSON, add the environment variable. So now, if I take template 1, go back to my code, edit this, and in fact, you know what? Let's add one. It's not in this template, so I won't do it. I could add mentions as well, but this template doesn't have a place for it. One more thing about this template, actually. Sorry, while we're looking at it, I want to point out that I also included an environment variable. So you can see here it says, and here is your build number, and it just has what looks like a standard environment variable that should be automatically translated for us once it's in the environment. So you can put whatever environment variable you want in the template itself, and it should auto expand. So there's lots of fun stuff you can do with that. So anyway, let's go ahead and push that. We have our template 1, add template. Spell it wrong, that's fine. No one cares. Push. We get the full spectrum. You were using Vim earlier. I'm not only using VS Code. I'm not even manually typing my Git commands. Just using VS Code. All right.
Yeah. Well, that was, like I said, it was a dare, I guess, from a friend. So just one of those types.
I honestly respect the heck out of it. In fact, I need to get better about learning all the shortcuts in VS Code, which many of them are just Vim based, right? So we'll take a look at our job. It already finished. You'll see this on any Slack orb. There'll be 2 steps. There'll be one that detects the status of the job. So at this point, when it's detecting the status, it is still currently passing. That's why it's important if you want to detect if something has failed, you should always run it at the end of your job, because if something fails after you've sent the notification, it doesn't know or care about it. So that worked. It sent a notification. You don't have to look at any of this, but it's in here. And let's go back to Slack and see what happened. Hopefully good things, I hope. It did. Yep. So you can see there's exactly what we saw from the block kit builder, and you can see the build number was automatically translated, which is awesome. So you can use that to do all types of, like if you want to get, let's say, earlier, Angel, you had that failure, right? What if we took the failure, logged it to a file, and then use that file to output into our Slack message? We could actually get the errors from our build if we know where they're going to be, like in some log directory or something, and actually put them in the message in Slack. In fact, it's not fully set up to do this right now, but it's even possible that you could upload files to Slack. The permission scope is there. The orb isn't. Yeah.
Can you capture the standard out and from CircleCI and then like leverage that? I haven't done anything like that, but I would assume sometimes log files, they're dangerous because they can have secrets in them.
yeah totally.
So I wouldn't go that route for security posture.
Maybe log file was an example, but
I'm just saying. I wouldn't recommend that practice trust me, I've been down that road. And if you want your security teams on your back, that's one way to get them. Like, why is this in Slack? Like, they'll know. So I would like to see it would be cool to see the standard out, right? Like, so I don't know if it's possible.
No, yeah, it totally.
And maybe
is.
that's something we can look out, because then things are masked, so to speak.
No, that wouldn't be. Quick note about that. Yeah. The masking of CircleCI secrets is only in the front end. So when you look at the actual website, secrets are masked. But if you write a secret to a file and then send that file somewhere else, it's there. You can see it. But I would show this off to echo your last point. You can't just tell the Slack orb to look at standard out, but you can take whatever standard out you're working with and redirect it somewhere else, right? So in this particular example, I'm actually on CircleCI, we have this special environment variable called bash env, which just gets an environment variable into your environment. That's kind of like profile RC, something like that. And you could take whatever file. So let's say I've already redirected standard out to some file called slack template.json or something. I can then create an environment variable called my orb template. Ideally, you would actually be using like JQ to insert this text into an actual template, but go into that. And then you can reference it like we just did.
Yeah, I'm going to look into like that because so the system's already outputting that, that masked thing in the app. Maybe, I don't know. We'll take a look at that. Like, it would be cool to, give a hint, or maybe, I don't know, scrub it. I don't know. But definitely, if it's outputting secrets and sensitive data, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, I mean, when you tell Slack to send something, it's going to send it. So I hope you are careful. But that's a good point. Like, you could actually write a small script. Maybe we should add this to Slack, right? This is a good discussion. We could have a script that like loops through env and make sure that none of those values are in the output. That's probably a really good idea. To answer Alex, could we approve a step from Slack? Unfortunately, not right now. I'll explain why, but I do want that to be a thing. And a lot of the reason is because you can approve a step via the CircleCI API. However, that would mean that you would have to submit that API key via the Slack message, which means that anyone in Slack could press approve, and it would just be approved by whoever's API key is there. So not only are you giving out your API key, you're also letting anyone press approve. And the reason for that is because the way the Slack orb works. In fact, this is something I wanted to, do we have a little bit of time? We have a little bit of time. I wanted to show how the Slack orb works. And to answer your question directly, it's because there is no tie between your Slack account, like your actual account on Slack, and your CircleCI account. And there's no service on CircleCI that's linking those things together, right? This is all bash. So it's actually much simpler than it even seems. I will let you know on a personal journey of mine, I want us to get to a place in the future where we actually have that ability through a more legitimate bot, but that synergy between your Slack account and CircleCI account is my blocker at the moment. But let's just take a quick look at the source of orbs, and then I'll hand it off. But an orb itself is broken up into components, jobs and commands mostly. We also have examples, which you'll see on the orb registry on CircleCI. If you ever go to look at how, we actually didn't look at that yet. I apologize. We're going to look at that too, real quick. Should have come up completely automatically. So if you go to our orb registry, you can search any platform, any product, any integration, and see if we have an existing orb for it, either if we've written it or maybe if the community's written it. You can see here the Slack orb, which will actually send you to the source and the documentation, as well as the usage examples that are on page and the included steps. But I want to show you how that notified command actually works. So if we go to commands, there's only one, notify.yaml. Take a look here. So there's a bunch of parameters, template, event. You can see event takes fail, pass, and always, and a few others that I'm not going to go into. And here is what's actually happening under the hood. We first check to see if the job has failed or passed, and we're writing that to an environment variable. And then we're just running this script called notify.sh and passing in a bunch of environment variables. Let's take a quick look at that script. Notify.sh. This is all that's happening under the hood. There's a bunch of functions. We build it this way so that we can properly test it. You can actually unit test bash if you weren't aware. You can unit test anything. So we have a bunch of different functions: build message body, post to Slack, modify custom template. These are some things we have to do to make your custom templates work for you automatically without you needing to do anything, auto escaping and such. JQ is a utility that we use to modify templates and anything with JSON on Linux. So we install that for you automatically under the hood. As well as these functionalities are for some of those other parameters that I was mentioning. You can do like tag filtering or branch filtering. So we have functionality for that as well. And yeah, this is probably the most complex bash I've personally ever written, as well as, by the way, dozens, maybe even 100. A lot of people have contributed to the Slack orb. It is by far our most popular orb. It's probably one of the biggest open source projects on CircleCI, which is actually really cool. So I basically highly recommend you try it out. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. And if it's not working out perfectly for you, not only can you create your own custom templates, but we're happy to have you send in a contribution, either an issue or a PR as well, and we can look into it. In fact, Angel had a good one earlier about possibly automatically hiding secrets. I think I could open an issue for that right now.
Yeah, definitely security is top of mind. So, but I don't use the Slack orb. I just really haven't had a need to. But it's anytime you can ease, right? Those are just one of those utilities you can easily add like some cool, easy like notifications, right? So this is all about feedback loops, right? So when you're doing continuous delivery, especially with continuous integration, you want to know when your stuff's broken as quickly as possible. And anytime you can, create functionality that easily, blends into your normal workflow or your tools, this is just like gold for developers and folks who are on the go. So yeah, man, thanks for that awesome demonstration and explanation of the orb. I know it's your pride and joy, so to speak, in the orb sphere. But again, right, this is just very useful things. And I encourage everyone who's listening or watching to check it out. And if you can contribute things like that approval step that you want, figure that out, right? And we'll be more than happy to also take a look and see where your ideas can kind of take us.
I just want to say I unfortunately have to jump after my segment here to another meeting. But I want to say thanks to first of all both of you. I want to say thanks to Alex, for engaging and asking questions and commenting and such. And Zan, I'm gonna have to look at your recording. I'm sorry I missed it.
No worries.
We'll strap him in and make him watch it at a later time.
Sensible. Anyway, we also have been known to give out swag to folks who contribute to our orbs or open source projects. So that's another motivation to contribute, I suppose. Anyway, let me talk to you about some things now. Share my screen. Screen 2. Boom. Q&A bites. I haven't got slides which are as nice as Kyle's. So anyway, if you've got questions, I would like to answer them in this segment. First one I had in mind today was publishing libraries to Maven Central. You might have heard that JCenter and Bintray are products that have been super popular in the last couple of years, or maybe more than a couple, like 5-6 years, I would say. They're shutting down. The company just turned into a different direction. So Maven Central is the new and also old, very, very old way to deploy Java or Android artifacts to
essentially the only way, right? At this point in time, I'm sure there's others, but maybe
there are no other tools which offer as seamless integration with very popular like build tools like Gradle, Maven, and so on. So I come from Android background, so I created this. I actually took a very old library of mine, this scrollable scroll. I built this back in 2016.
I love it, man. Bringing some old code back to life.
It's so old. It's written in Java.
It's all good. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
it's good for demoing, man. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. So I figured, okay, let's take this and automate this so it's deployed with CircleCI automatically to Maven Central. And if you've ever deployed something to Maven Central, the UI is great. This is how it looks like. It's truly I'm not sure if this is very visible here. I think it is, right, Angel?
Welcome back to 1992. Oh no,
Exactly.
2000,
I mean,
2003.
It's like 2003. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
UI, and this is the updated one. Anyway,
Right.
thanks to Sonotype, they are awesome. They're providing us with this tool. So it's called Sonotype Open Source Repository Hosting, and yeah, basically you sign up. If you want to publish something, you need to create a Jira ticket, which is then approved. What you get is you get this thing called group, which is a Maven indicator of like your kind of domain or top level package name that you use. So like for me, I used com.zmarkan, so it's one of my domains. They asked me to verify this if like I had to set up some DNS stuff to kind of point back to there, and so they could verify that I own that domain. Anyway, if you don't do it, you can do it through GitHub accounts and stuff like that. But if you want to publish, you need to kind of go through this manual process, and then you have access to this lovely UI. And let me see if I can actually publish something. And this is probably not visible at all. Let me open this in Visual Studio Code, just because zooming works better in Visual Studio Code. Open folder.
Maximize that, please.
Yeah, we'll. I just
okay.
find
Sorry.
my project.
It's just I always forget to maximize.
Yeah, I know.
That's why you gotta use Vim. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna do any. I'm not gonna show you any Java stuff, just because. Yeah, later. I'm not gonna show any Java stuff. I'm just gonna show the project. But essentially, I have my terminal right here. I've set this up so that you can do. You can do like this is the old way of publishing stuff to Maven Central. You need this is my scrollable scroll library. It's a test utility, so the test is actually it's a test utility that basically needs to be tested through the application, and it's an interesting way to test testing tools. Anyway, there is a like official Maven published Gradle plugin, which also required you to sign this thing with a GPG signing key. I don't think this will work actually. Anyway, I just want to show you the manual process of publishing this, because it's very, 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 yeah. I'm probably missing a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I don't have the signing keys set up. Anyway,
somewhat of a failed resurrection, but that's okay. It's very old.
I mean,
right?
I have them in CircleCI. That's the point.
I got you. Right,
locally,
right.
Yeah. But essentially, the way this manual process worked, this would stick your repository in this staging repository section, which is obviously not showing anything because I don't have any right now. Oh God.
That's right. Love that server.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's some old school stuff.
But yeah,
right there.
so like that's their kind of repositories. Repositories.
Oh yeah.
Collection. Search like Zan Markan. And this is my little library, the ones that I had published. And the idea was that you were you had to manually go into staging repositories and then hit close repository and then do release and then drop this staging repository. It was like, and all the time you had to like click refresh every 10, 15 seconds just because this took so long.
Yeah.
This was like a process that I had to do in previous life. I had to do a bunch of library development, and this was something I looked at a lot. And now I was super happy to see that there is actually a Gradle plugin that allows you to automate this whole thing. And provided you have this Maven publish and signing setup, which requires you to essentially package the Java doc and the sources. So Maven Central requires you to package Java doc and sources. Obviously, not every library will have its sources. For example, if you're building something that's got proprietary code in there, you only want to do like interfaces, you can still get away with it by providing an empty zip file. But essentially, if you're publishing an open source project, you kind of need to do it. And obviously, this project, my project, is open source, so you can check it out later. And then you had to like configure this kind of publishing step. So, and this has all been the fact for a while. So what goes into this POM? POM is how we package Maven project, give it an artifact ID. Sorry?
It's the manifest.
Oh, yeah.
So
POM is a manifest, maybe. Yeah, it could be.
it is.
Okay. I've never thought what it is actually, what it means. Anyway, group ID is your kind of for my case, it's like com.markan. For you, might be something else. Artifact ID is whatever your library is, and then version is whatever version you give it. Obviously, you give it some other things as well, like what are the licenses, who's the developers, where the repo is located, and then configure the repositories. And this is something you get from Maven Central when you're kind of creating your Jira ticket. They give you all this information. And then these are the credentials that the same credentials you used to log in with on the web. You can actually get you can actually create a token with those as well. So you have a different set of credentials that you can then revoke easily. And then you need to kind of sign this with a GPG key. It's a process to set this up on CircleCI, and I'll show that in a bit. Essentially, you need to use the in-memory ones and inject this key as an environment variable. But yeah, that's kind of how this all works. And then the plugin that makes this not a manual process when you get to Maven Central is this Gradle Nexus Publish plugin, which is absolutely amazing. It makes stuff so much easier. Let me show it.
While you're doing that, I need to correct myself. A POM is a project object model, not a manifest. My bad. Yeah.
Okay,
but
no worries.
I view them as manifests. Anytime you see XML, for me, it's like, oh, here's another.
Yeah.
Manifest. But anyway.
So there were apparently like two different solutions to do this, and they merged it into a single project. And this is now the v1.0 thing to publish stuff with. And you basically just need to need to define it like a Nexus publishing closure here at the top of the project level build Gradle. And then it looks for any projects, any submodules that you have, like my scrollable scroll here, that has the Maven publish plugin integrated, and it creates tasks for each of those. And yeah, this is the same Java, all the things said nobody ever. Come on, Java's pretty good. Again,
there's typos all over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anyway, this one more thing I want to show you is this find property in Gradle. This is actually pretty cool because it looks for properties both in your Gradle.properties and also in environment variables. So, but they need to be named in according to their own kind of naming standard. So an environment variable for it to be recognized by Gradle, it needs to be called org_Gradle_project, and then whatever your actually one underscore more, and then the rest. So full
just like a namespace, but
yeah, but the way you can the best way to do namespacing in like environment variables essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the magic plugin that makes everything better, and it gives you a couple of Gradle tasks which are defined here. So this is my CircleCI config. So you got to publish to Sonatype and then close and release Sonatype staging repository, which do what you want to do essentially. All that stuff that used to be so manual, you can actually just do it with a single Gradle call, and it's beautiful. Anyway, so I've set up this CircleCI config to first use the new Android machine image that has access to the emulator, because I had a couple of tests which require the emulator to run because the test framework works on a device. So that's pretty convenient.
Was that because it was like a pinned version or of the emulator? You know, sometimes.
No, it's just the test framework that this extends is the one that uses that does the screen pokey things. So you need access to an actual device. Yeah, so it uses Espresso. So yeah, build the library and then deploy to Sonatype, which is that thing. And this actually does two different things. It deploys both real releases, so the kind of productionized releases that anyone can access, as well as the snapshot releases. And the way to deploy snapshots in like this Maven central standard is essentially append snapshot to the name of the version. So I'm basically looking at the current Git tag, and if the Git tag exists, that's obviously a tagged version release that we're about to publish. Or then if not, it just picks up the latest, the last tag that we had and append snapshot to it. So if we have like 1.0.25, it would append a snapshot to it. Why we're doing snapshots? Because I want to do nightly builds, and they essentially run on a cron job every night. And so any kind of beta users of this library or developer who wants to live on the edge, they can actually just use the snapshots, and they're always nightly. Code will compile, the tests will run, but no more guarantees essentially. Whereas like the final release version is a more stable thing, obviously, because you pinned the actual version. So I had to do some bash thingamajig. And then the last one is essentially inject the Maven signing key. So I have an environment variable. I'll show the CircleCI config in a second. And I'm basically spitting that into Gradle.properties. For some reason, the way these GPG signing keys work or behave, Gradle wasn't happy picking the whole thing because it's got like a lot of gibberish and a lot of white space, and it just wouldn't pick that up as an environment variable. So I had to kind of spit it out into a Gradle properties file, which is just this thing here. And I'm just like adding a new line like a Gradle publish key, and that's it. Sorry.
Isn't there a way? Is there a way to generate these property files through Gradle, and then if you feed it a string or something? I don't know. haven't really used Gradle in a while.
Through Gradle, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like it's a property, so you could potentially append it at runtime, but that didn't work for me just because like the whole file is so long and so complex that it just didn't. If you've never seen a GPG or signing key, it goes with this kind of begin private key and then like a couple of white space, a couple of empty lines, and then just kind of like hundreds of lines of essentially crypto gibberish.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And obviously once we have the version injected, and this is the type of the environment variable that we're kind of injecting, and the signing key in place, then we can actually run assemble, publish to Sonatype, and close and release Sonatype staging repository. So in my workflow, I have the run UI test job, which comes from the orb, the Android orb, and it just runs the connected debug Android test on an emulator. I'm not particularly fussy because I'm not like, this is a very old library. I don't want to run it on like 10 different versions of Android emulators just because I'm not sure anyone will actually use it. But it's a good POC. And then I have an approval job, which only kind of works on this tag again, because I have kind of filtered out all the branches. So only if it's a tagged build that begins with the number with a followed by a dot and then other numbers, obviously. That's what this filters does. Only then will be deploying to Sonatype. And then I also have a nightly snapshot workflow, which has a cron job trigger set up. So I only wanted to run it at midnight of every day. So hour 0, minute 0, every day, every week, every month, or something like that. Like, it's a cron syntax. I never know what it does.
It's
until
daily.
Until I actually look at it, and this is always UTC, so it's going to depend on whether it runs midnight your time or it's always midnight UTC anyway, but only on the main branch. And for that, I just need run UI test and deploy to Sonatype, because it's a snapshot. It's not versioned. It's not tagged. We can just deploy this without any approval processes. So let's delete those two empty lines in the end.
That's where you kick off a job, huh?
Exactly.
Getting the that's okay for the demo. This is pretty interesting because you kind of showed off what I was talking about earlier, with filters and being able to kind of just execute workloads based off of certain context, and it's really important. I think as teams grow, right? Like a lot of times I talk to a lot of folks who are just starting out, right, with CI/CD, and when they're using us, they really they're not leveraging all the capabilities such as filters and tagging and all that good stuff, at least within, filtering their workloads. But this is a good example of how to do that and why you should do it, right? Like, so it's nice.
Yeah. Example. So what I've done is I've pushed this main branch to CircleCI, and it's.
Can you zoom in on that?
Yeah, sorry.
That's good.
Because it's not running any of the tags. This is just going to run the tests. So It's going to tell us, okay, this is best. But now I've actually tagged it as well. Git push. Boom. Now push the tag as well. So 1030. And that will kick it off as well. And now we actually have this kind of approval and deployment story. I'm gonna go wait for the whole thing, but you can trust me that whenever, actually you can go to this URL to oss.sonatype.org and find the repository, and you'll be able to see that this goes to 1030.
Yeah.
And also in a couple of hours it's going to be visible. Yeah.
Can you show it as a like the pre-baked one? Is this a pre-baked one? I mean, that's probably best,
that's the pre-baked one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
one.
Yeah, cool.
That's all the junk that kind of gets added to the archives, but that's kind of like a standard Maven publishing anyway. So if you've used any library before, you've probably pulled it from here anyway. Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to show from the Gradle publishing perspective. I also wanted to talk about the CircleCI context, but we already talked about them. I just want to point out the API preview that we announced a couple of weeks ago, I think. So you can actually rotate your keys in your context using this API endpoint. So you actually just kind of like very easily have keys that kind of update on a regular basis for things, which is pretty important for security.
Actually, that's something that is important for folks to know too. And thanks for bringing it up, Zan. Is we do have API access to a lot of these objects within the pipeline, but definitely this is something I haven't gotten to play with yet. But because I am very, very big on security, this would be something I'm going to take a deeper dive when I get some time into looking at. How to rotate passwords. I generally tend to lean towards, offloading that to something like a secrets management system, but you could actually leverage that system to then also regenerate and implement tagging in context objects within your system using API.
Yeah, and contexts are pretty great because you actually kind of restrict the job execution to any privileged groups. We've seen approval jobs. You can actually specify a context which is only accessible to a certain group in your GitHub organization, for example.
Right.
And if someone outside of that group tries to do approve, any of those kind of approved jobs will automatically fail because it's not come from someone who has this permission. So you can actually do like some pretty fancy stuff. And of course, you can specify like whatever environment you're deploying to. For example, like in my Maven publishing example, I'm using the same set of credentials because it's the same flow. But if I had like a staging, production, test environment, I could have different context based on those environment. And if like any credentials leaked for whatever reason that might be, whatever context could essentially protect from kind of those credentials being leaked in other contexts, basically, if you split those apart. So that's one more that I wanted to cover. It's quite a quick one, and yeah, you can read about all that stuff in here. There's like pretty good docs on this. My project doesn't really use context just because I just have a single deployment. But if I were to do multiple library projects, I would probably have to use this just because I can easily publish to any of those.
Contexts are definitely like, I was going to say contexts are definitely like, I would say more of a tool you would probably use if you have like multiple teams and multiple individuals working on something, right, on the same projects, and the credentials need to be different, right? So like maybe there's a team with XYZ AWS credentials, right? So you could set up like, I don't know, Q&A teams, AWS credentials, right? And then your pipeline will run under those contexts instead of, kicking things off in maybe another development team's API keys, right? So yeah, these are you have to sometimes make some choices, but definitely check context out if you need. I would say like access to environment variables across teams and projects within your org, and then also if you're leveraging some sort of access control, right? Like, so it's definitely good for that as well.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of all I had prepared. If anyone else has any more questions, I'll be happy to or Angel will also be happy to answer.
Yeah, no,
but yeah,
I don't think there's many people asking questions, but the folks that are still on, yeah, if you have any questions, just hit us up. Even after, if this is recorded, so if you're watching this later, jump into the Discord site. Maybe we can put that up on the banner there.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just circle.ci/Discord. That's our server. We have a channel for meetups where we usually kind of share stuff that's relevant to meetups. And that's pretty.
Hey, thanks, Alex, for showing up.
Yeah, thanks, Alex.
And sticking in with us. Hey, jump on Discord
next time.
Yeah, also, Alex, jump onto the Discord and connect with either Zan or I, since you were watching the whole time. We're going to send you some swag.
Definitely. Yeah, in this case, I don't think we have any more, so I'll stop my screen share. I hope this was useful for folks. We had some solid viewership, looks like.
Yeah, no, this is good, man. I mean, and we have one of the things that we do lack in is in some Android expertise and examples, which is this is actually really good. And this also applies to anyone who's using Gradle, right? Like, I mean, or kind of JVM, actually, JVM powered framework, right? Like if you're using Scala or right, Maven Central hosts all those types of compilers.
We'll actually have another library publishing tool author on the stream in a couple of weeks/months, I would say. We've not scheduled the exact date yet, but I have a provisional one. So that's going to be cool. Anyway, we have a meetup page. Go check us out. And yeah, take care, everyone. See you next time.
And I just want to say one thing before we go. Please submit, if you're watching this after as well, please submit any questions or topics you want us to cover. We're all about just this session. These sessions are going to be for your education and your interaction and your engagement. So we want to make this useful for folks. But if you don't, we're going to come up with topics that we think are relevant or things we need to discuss. So yeah, please participate. I'm excited to see, how folks kind of engage with us in the future. We're trying to open up more avenues again to engage developers and meet you where you are instead of us guessing or going by our gut instincts, which I think we're doing a good job, but that's okay. All right, thank you everybody. Zan and Kyle, he's gone, but definitely was a lot of fun and interesting to see all the presentations today. So thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.